4 o'clock. I'm not gonna do that. Let's call a meeting to order, please. Roll call.
Brooks. Kushner,
Here.
Lund,
Here.
Bentley,
Here.
Holmberg.
Here. Adoption of agenda.
Move to adopt?
Brooks, Kushner,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes. Okay, presentation. We've got 4-1 presentation. I'm sorry, personnel budget discussion. I was making up words there by Danielle Dillon and looks like Marcella.
Marcel and I are going to tag team this presentation this afternoon, but first I want to make sure I give a huge thanks to Rachel Denfeld in our finance department, as well as Greg McCullough in human resources and Kathy Henson in human resources, as well as all the department directors. As we kind of started looking at these numbers, it's been a lot of budget, like crunching numbers, doing a lot of research. You know, I think even at one point, Greg was probably 3/4 of a way through a police officer application in Sedalia, maybe. So anyways, we've been working really hard on this, and so thank you for the opportunity to present this to you this evening. Just a recap of what our budget development timeline has looked like. Today is August 3rd. We're going to be talking about our personnel budget discussion. At our next meeting on August 9th, we will make a final budget recommendation. So we've been kind of looking at all these different pieces. We've gone over what the department requests were. We looked at our capital improvement options and projects that we wanted to do, and now we're looking at our personnel budget. And so we'll finally put all the pieces together for you on August 9th. And then on August 23rd, we'll give you that opportunity between August 9th and August 23rd to kind of process the information that we've provided. If you have any questions, we'll be able to answer that. If there's any, prioritization, if we need to talk about what needs to be cut or what needs to be put back in, we can have those conversations as well. And then on August 23rd, we'll do a first reading. And then again, on September 13th, we'll do our second reading and adoption of the budget. So a development update from where we are now. As far as operational expenses look, we are currently $170,000 over revenue. That does not include any of the personnel expense changes that we are proposing this afternoon for you. We did receive our property tax, our assessed valuations from the county, and that is going to go up a little bit, but ultimately our mill levy is actually being rolled back. That is part of that revenue neutral that we work with here in the state of Missouri. So our 5-year average personnel budget is about 66% of total expenditures. What we are looking at, we know we are estimating a 20% increase in health insurance. So that's about $183,000 this year. We're looking at PTO buyouts. That's another $155,000. Last year in 2020, we spent about $75,000 in PTO buyout. So, however, it will probably not surprise you to see that number is much higher this year, considering all the vacancies that we have in public safety and all the vacancies and challenges that we've been experiencing in our fire department as well. Our individuals just have not had an opportunity to take time off for that rejuvenation, relaxation that we encourage them to do. So, that comes with a whole nother list of concerns outside of just the budget. We want to make sure we're taking care of our employees, but that number is quite a bit higher than it was in 2020. As we did our strategic plan, we received direction from City Council to prioritize strategic plan focus number 5. That's employee morale and retention. So we have 4 strategies that we'd like to present for you all this evening that total about $255,000. So you will remember that we're already $170,000 over. So it's about a total of $600,000 that we will be looking to cut over the next week before we make that final budget recommendation to you on August 9th. So the first strategy that we are looking at for employee morale and retention is salary range adjustments. So we have our pay structure, and when they did the pay analysis and the pay study several years ago, they wanted to make sure they hit that 50th percentile. So the 50th percentile meaning if there is the competition in our market, our comparable cities that we're looking at, whoever the say whoever is paying the lowest versus whoever is paying the highest, we want our range to be right in the middle of that. So that's what we mean when we say 50th percentile. I think sometimes when people hear 50th percentile, they're trying to think that we want all of our employees to be at the midpoint of their salary range. That's not what that means. When you get to the midpoint of your salary range, that means you're an expert at your job. You've been doing it for about 2 or 3 years. You're not entry level anymore, and you're probably starting to look for that next promotion or that next level up. So when we talk about salary range adjustments, that's about $16,000. We're looking at performance evaluations and merit increases at about $98,000, and I'll go into more details on all these here in a minute. Regrading of existing positions and market adjustments in public safety. So with the employee morale and retention, salary range adjustments, we are looking at about a 3.4% increase to maintain that 50th percentile. This does not have a big budget impact, about $16,000, because we need to move everyone who is at the beginning of their salary range. They will be adjusted up 3.4%. So we do have some individuals who were recently hired, or who maybe only got a 3% bump last year when we did that, but they were already at that entry level. So when we adjust these salary ranges, if we move forward with this plan, and we move those salary ranges up, we will see that increase in people needing to be bumped up to the minimum of their salary range. The other thing, we are looking at going forward and just implementing the minimum wage. So the lowest number, that salary wage that we would have right now would be $11.92, where we know in 2023, the state of Missouri is going to require us to pay $12 an hour anyway. So we spend a lot of time going through doing PAs, adjusting that minimum wage every year. And with it being so close to $11.92 to that $12, we're just proposing to go ahead and move that forward for 2022 and 2023. This does not, moving that minimum wage to $12 does not include part or part-time staff. So the other one that we are looking at is performance evaluations and merit increases. So along with the salary study that was done a few years ago, they also implemented a performance evaluation and merit increases. How that looks is that the top 10% of employees were all rated on a scale of 1 to 5 stars on several different competencies for our roles and our positions. And so if you're in the top 10%, you get a 5% merit raise. If you are in the next 15%, you get a 4%. If you have a score of 3 or higher, but you're not in that 15%, you will get 3%. For a score between 2 and 2.92%, and a score of 1.9 or below 1%. We looked at this, so that was that $98,000 number that was on that previous slide. What we're looking at there is just an average of a 3%, kind of assuming everyone gets that 3%. How this fits in with those salary range adjustments. So we're adjusting salaries and ranges, and we're going to adjust the minimums up. And if you're at that minimum, you will be automatically moved up. However, you will not receive a pay increase just because the salary range is increasing. But what it does allow is for you to get that 5% or that 4%. And since we're bumping the front end, the high end of that salary range, that allows for movement for you to get that 5% without being capped off and not being able to get that. Another item that we're looking at is regrading existing positions. So we have 3 positions in community development that we are looking at regrading, and 2 positions in public works that we are looking at regrading. We might take a look at doing some parks positions and maybe some other public works positions later in the year, kind of looking at how budget comes in and opportunities there, as it continues to be a struggle to hire folks. But what regrading these existing positions allows us to do is to keep people here. This is really a retention, keep them here, letting them know that when you're maxed out at your salary, when you're maxed out at your range, we still understand that you're still taking on additional responsibilities if your position has grown. And it also shows that there's opportunity for advancement as we start to have people who go into retirement. So this helps us put together our succession plan as we start to see some of those more tenured folks look to their next chapter in life. That was about a $4,000 increase. So the one that we have spent a lot of time on is market adjustments and public safety. So you all are very aware after the department budget presentations given by Chief Lockhart and Interim Chief Oxley about the challenges we've been having in our public safety departments. So the difference between a market adjustment and a salary range adjustment. So we will not be regrading our entry-level police officers or what our police officers are at or our firefighters. However, we are looking at what those positions are going for in the market right now and what we need to be paying those police officers to get quality and to be able to keep quality in our departments. So the police department's facing a different challenge than the fire department. So we are looking at entry-level police officers, trying to recruit. We know when we did our salary study a few years ago, we were the top paying department. Once we put that number out, all the other public safety departments said, we got to beat Warrensburg. So we see this competition amongst public safety departments, and it is a challenge. So what we are looking at right now, we are still, we're starting to fall behind on that 50th percentile, that range in what our entry level is and what we're paying our police officers. We're starting to fall behind on that, losing some ground there. But also just looking at the quality of officers, we have a very strong feelings and beliefs about what we want our police officers to be and the reputation of our police department. And I've heard Chief Lockhart and his team say multiple times, we would rather be understaffed rather than not have quality. We want to have the best officers to represent the Warrensburg Police Department. So what we are looking at, their minimum range is 1636, I believe, in that range. So we are actually looking at bumping that to $18.25. This is about a 10 to 11% increase. So they would be offering to start entry-level officers at that $18.25. We would be making adjustments to all the officers that we have recently hired. We would be bumping their minimum salaries up. But what we start to run into then is salary compression, pay compression. So when we have an officer who's been here for 2 or 3 years, when we are looking at increasing that entry-level salary, we might have an officer who's been here for 3 years who'd be making about the same as an officer who just gets hired in. So we have to really look at all of our public safety officers and making sure that we are making that market adjustment for their skills, their experiences, and really the level of quality that they have and that they're bringing to our department and making individual adjustments for each of them. Just an anecdotal story that was shared. If we say we bring an officer in and that officer has, 5 years of experience, he's been an SRO, he's really, got all kinds of certifications and trainings under his belt. He's been a police officer in a larger organization. And then he comes in and he gets brought on board here. Well, someone who is, been with us for 5 years and they see that person get brought on and they don't feel like their time here has been rewarded, and they feel, the anecdotal that is told is, I should just quit and get rehired because then you would pay me more. So we want to make sure we're not running into that. We want to make sure we're taking care of our quality officers that we have here.
Question for you, if you don't mind. Just to help me anchor, you gave us a entry level for the police department. How does that compare with sheriff department?
We have lots of these numbers rolling around in my head, so I want to make sure that
Yeah, and I'm not trying to indicate where I want something said. I'm just trying to get a anchor.
Chief, do you remember what the starting salary is for?
They're about $1.50 an hour more.
So they're about $17.80. So the Johnson County Sheriff's Department's about $17.80. So Sedalia is about $19.22. And then some of the more rural departments that we look at are about $18.60. So if we look at that $18.25 and we talk about the 50th percentile or those percentiles and where we're falling at in the market, that $18.25 gets us to the 75th percentile. However, we know once we publish this $18.25, we're going to see exactly what we saw when we published back in 2016, when we did our adjustments in 2016, that other departments are gonna start raising their rates. They're gonna start having that conversation as well. So we want to be able to be competitive for several years. So at least 2-3 years, let us get some good quality officers in. And then once they're here, and then for the police department, it's getting them here. But once they're here, they want to stay here and they want to continue being part of our department. We don't necessarily face the retention issue like we see in the fire department. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. So with the mid-career firefighters, we kind of alluded to this a little bit. We don't necessarily struggle getting younger firefighters in. What we see is the city of Warrensburg has kind of become a training ground for firefighters. So they get on board with us and they work for us for about 2 or 3 years, and then they go take the test in Lee Summit, or they go take the test in Sedalia, and they move on to a bigger fire department. A lot of different things come into play here. With the firefighters, you know, sometimes they just want more action. The difference between firefighters and police officers is because of their schedules, they can actually live an hour and a half away because they come here and they stay for 24-hour shift. So, you know, we have lots of firefighters that we brought on board who already live in Lee Summit, or they already live in Kearney. They already live in Kearney. Kansas is coming out there. My apologies. Kearney. And so they already live there. So when they see those positions available, they're trying to get back home so they don't have to have that hour travel. So we have a lot of different factors that we fight with the firefighters. We have definitely fallen behind that 50th percentile in the firefighters. So what we are looking at in that mid-career firefighter, we're actually looking at about a 13% increase in their hourly wage. And that would not get us to the 70th percentile. That only gets us just above 50th percentile, maybe getting close to the 60th percentile, but we are very far behind in our firefighter salaries. So this is what we feel like we can do now. One of the other issues we have, and we've talked about again, is that succession planning in the fire department. We know we have some captains that are ready to retire, and so showing those, making sure that we can keep those firefighters and those firefighter specialists on board and keeping them here and letting them know, like, there is an opportunity to be promoted. There is an opportunity for that additional responsibility and to move up in our organization. But when they're looking at making, you know, $3 an hour less, $4 an hour less than they would in another organization, that's hard for them to turn down. To wait for another 2 or 3 years. Again, we will be looking at pay compression in the fire department. So we will be making adjustments and taking a look at all of those, the firefighters versus the specialists versus the captains. So trying to make those adjustments, looking at their skills, looking at their experiences, their certifications, their trainings, and making sure that they are being compensated fairly in our organization as they would if we were to hire someone with their skills and experiences today. So in closing, if we were to implement these strategies, we would still be approximately $600,000 over budget, revenues over expenses. So we still have a lot of work to do. I mentioned previously in the first slide that we did that our personnel budget over the last 5 years had averaged about 66%. In FY22, if we make these adjustments and we move towards some of these strategies for employee morale and retention, we will be looking at 75% of our general fund expenditures would be dedicated to personnel. Are there any questions?
I do, and I don't want to put anybody specifically on the spot, but I guess I'm going to a little bit, not trying to negative or anything, but when we did council tours, Andy, you did the presentation, you talked about income. So how you feel about these numbers, where are we at?
About the income,
Right, well, the changes we're talking about making.
I feel the changes are good. I think they're still too low.
Okay.
I think when you got today making 40 around around 39,000. I think that's hard to compete with, in my personal opinion. Sheriff's office, they're a little bit lower than what we're proposing. But she's exactly right. They're gonna probably bump it up right above what we do, but eventually that will run out. That money, he won't be able to keep doing that. If we can get in that in-between side, I think some of that moves in the right direction. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and I honestly don't want to compete with the sheriff because obviously we want them
No, I don't
healthy
either.
too. And my farm's in the sheriff's
That's what
department, so I need them.
That's the world we're living in. That's what we're living in, with
Yeah.
all the agencies around.
Appreciate that. I know that was on the spot, but I did listen to you and in that presentation, and I wanted to circle back. So thank you. So with personnel budget being 75% of the total expenditures, because I know we can't, we've got buckets of funds we can spend and stuff. That's significant.
It is. And, we know we have to look at it, other alternative revenue streams. And the one that we have talked a lot about is that public safety sales tax. We are constrained by the state of Missouri and that we need them to pass a bill to allow us to put that on the ballot and go to a vote. One of the conversations that Marcella and I had earlier today and is that the state of cities in the state of Missouri, we can actually go up to a 10% or 2% general sales tax. So we are only at 1% right now. So we could put that on, we could ask our Warrensburg voters for up to an additional 1% for general fund. If we are not successful at our bid at the state for getting them to put that, allowing us to move forward with that public safety sales tax. And maybe if it's not, maybe if we don't, maybe we still go for that, and we still get that in place, but maybe it is something we start entertaining, raising our general sales tax to provide a little bit of relief in our general fund budget. That's something we haven't really talked about before. We've talked about these dedicated pots because these dedicated pots are easy to explain to sell to the taxpayers, right? This sales tax is going to be dedicated to CIP. This sales tax is going to be dedicated to parks and stormwater. This sales tax is going to be dedicated to law enforcement. So that's why Missouri has really had these certain buckets of these sales tax, but that is an option we could look at, is looking at raising our general sales tax up to 1%.
I'm willing to go there. I was excited about the public safety, but when legislature pulled that off because it got clouded, because they don't work like we do, where we take one item at a time. And I always speak a lot, but council weighed in on it. But if we can do anything, fix it local to keep and maintain and retain staff, that's important to me. Because you're going to hit a point where you can't do anymore. I mean, you can draw a sigmoidal curve on this, and I can point you to the point when we're dead meat.
And remember, and the other 25% of that budget is operations, and it's bare minimum. And Marcella and I were feeling like we're starting to cut into the fat a little bit when we got down to 170,000, and now we're looking for another 600. And we're starting to cut into the meat a little bit. We might get to bone this year. We do have some strategies that we're looking at as far as, since we are having difficulties filling these FTEs, do we need a budget for a full year? So that's a strategy that we're looking at taking. But we are very committed to presenting a balanced budget to you at the August 9th meeting. And then if there are a few things that we want to spend out of reserves, we can have that conversation at the August 9th meeting as well. But we at least want to put a balanced budget to start that conversation.
Any other?
It's hard to do anything without the employees, and if it continues at this rate, we're gonna lose. Somebody's gonna have to say sometime, nope, can't come and do that because we don't have the people to do it. I don't know how we're gonna fix it, but if it's not for the employees. Yeah, I know when I was the fire chief, we were running at 82% as personnel. A very, very slim operating budget. And I don't think it's any different now, is it? What about PD? Are you guys still running about 80%?
Over. It was 88%, 20% the council. It was 80% 4 years ago. You can see it's going the wrong direction.
Yeah. And it's not just fire and police too. There's shortages across the board. You know, how many shortages out does Dave short? Two?
Which is 20% of our force.
Right.
Smaller.
We're running out of people to do the work.
Another thing to consider, we have a law enforcement tax, versus this general sales tax is the timeline and the timing of it. So we could look at, Marcel, help me with my timeline here, but with the law enforcement tax, we have to get that through Jeff City. So we're looking at April of 22 before that, even June of 22, before that even gets approved.
Signed, right, yeah.
Signed. So we can't put it on a ballot until April of 23.
Right.
And we don't get revenues. Yeah,
October of 24, sorry,
no, go ahead.
October of 24 to get the revenue for that half the sales tax. So you're still looking at a 2-year window, and that's just running on the general legislative timeline because everything is approved, when legislation closes in May, the governor signs everything in July, it goes into effect August the 28th. And so by August the 28th, you've missed your November ballot opportunity. So you're at your April ballot opportunity, to do that. Where your general sales tax or even some of the other special sales tax that were presented to you last year, that's at your all's discretion, to authorize those to go to the vote of the citizens and to go forward. So if we were to do the 1 cent sales tax in April of 22, then you've got an opportunity to start collecting that money in actually August of 22. So
What would that generate? About?
the 1% would double what you're making now. So you've got about $3 million a year in general sales tax. So it would generate $3 million a year.
Personally want to bet on the legislature again. I don't think that was wrong to bet on them, but it didn't go. But that's the whole council's decision on it. But I think we go for both. But I'm a high risk taker. I believe we will convince the community if we explain what we're doing. And our community is very fond of overall staff and fire and police. I think we do it right. We can explain it. I can't. I'm comfortable. So.
And one of the benefits about the general sales tax is that also gives us some flexibility in public works, gives us some flexibility in some of the things we want to do with IT, gives us some of the flexibility that we need to do with some financial software and some financial goals, as well as HR. City clerk, we know we have a retirement coming up, but we've also got goals that we want to tackle as far as our electronic record retention. We have no money in our general fund budget for anything, for any projects, for anything to move us forward, for anything for us to progress our city. We are only maintaining, and like I mentioned, we're going to be cutting it to meet and likely hit the bone this year.
No other questions or? Is that it, ma'am?
That is all I have for you. So I'm hearing though that there is consensus from this group for us to bring, after we get through this budget cycle, and Marcella loves it when I say this, when things slow down. In a couple months, look in September, early October, bringing back conversation about possibly putting a sales tax on the ballot and what we would do with those funds, because I do think it'll be important for us, since we are going for a general sales tax, to be able to tell the people what we're gonna be doing with them.
Yeah, your timeline for that is typically, authorization in December, a certification is completed by the end of January to go on to the April ballot, just like you do your election pieces.
I'll be amiss. I know you talked to Andy, but we didn't have an opportunity to hear from Chief Oxley. Did you have anything you wanted to add about how this will impact your department and if we will be?
Sure. As you guys know, I'm just a fan of. Fire department, we don't make a lot of noise. We just, if there's a job in front of us, we get it done some way or the other. That's always been, Jim taught me that. It's always been what we've done. I mean, a lot of guys ran up the towers, 343 guys. We've always said, to get it done kind of folks. I'm my most senior firefighter I hired last year. That's what the rate I'm losing at. That's my firefighter. My fire specialist, I think I have one that has 9 years. So we're losing folks. The disparity between pay between my younger folks, they're starting at $14, $41,000 a year. That's where the last 5 went. So they're working the same shifts we work, 24, 48. We're losing folks that way. My officers, it's always been that way. There's a huge disparity in pay between my chief level officers and what is paid. Fortunately, most of my chief level officers came up through this department. They're not going anywhere, so they're kind of trapped. But it's pretty sad that there is almost a full firefighter's pay difference between what my chief officers get paid and what chief officers in the city get paid. And it's probably my own fault. I was asked, what do our guys do? And a lot of people don't know what our guys do. We just do it in the background, and when you call, we show up. The chief level officers are not like the large city office, battalion chiefs, officers. I ask a whole lot more from mine. They do budgeting, they do payroll, they do HR work. Plus, they also schedule shifts. And every once in a while, you see them underneath the fire truck working on it. So, yeah, our chief officers aren't like what city said. Our chief officers, we do a lot more. And our captains also, our captains manage programs, captains in East Summit, Kansas City, CJC, they don't manage. So Warrensburg has notoriously gotten a lot of bang for the buck on the fire department. Yeah, we buy expensive trucks and stuff like that. But last week I had a 19-year-old lady driving my fire truck. That's almost $1.2 million worth of equipment rolling down the road, and that's just the fire truck. It's not the ladder. But that's where I am trying to train drivers and my operators. So yeah, we got some retention problems. And the individuals we hire now to get the quality candidates that we're looking for, we have to reach up into Kansas City to get them. Most of our new firefighters and recruits come from Kansas City, Kearney, Lee Summit, places like that. But locally, there wasn't a whole lot to draw from anymore. And then they got some experience and they left. So we're gonna do whatever it takes to keep the fire department and the city moving forward. We just kind of hope that you guys take care of us some way. Money was great. That would be a big incentive to keep them stay. But we're trying a lot of other things. In the fire department, we do a lot of things together. We're just built that way. We're kind of a family. We're trying to implement a whole lot more family retention things. So I hope that you guys can find the money for us. I do appreciate, and I appreciate all the money that you've found for us so far. Thank you very much.
But I guess the question, since Danielle put you, and I'm not trying to put people on the spot, but
That's fine.
the presentation we just heard will help.
What's that, sir?
The presentation that we just heard, the funds that we just talked about will help.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
Yeah, it'll help that range.
Okay.
I think. But like I said, my next level. And I spoke with the department heads and we had this. It'll help now, but what's next? We have to look at the whole pile. Truly, between my battalion chiefs and at least some battalion chiefs started at $40,000 pay difference. Captains are around 20, I think. So, pretty tough.
thank you. My volunteer to drive the truck and polish is still good.
Still got some wax.
You guys wouldn't let me do it the other day, so I just want you to know, I
We still
volunteered.
have wax, though.
Okay. I had a chance to have a couple hour session at Firehouse, and what an awesome group of people. So I understand why the cops want to be more like you. Anything else, or we can, let's adjourn. Danielle, thanks for asking Chief Oxley to speak. I didn't